object arguments. Here you can pass the mock object. Good morning, everyone. In yesterday's session, we discussed about ORM basics. Okay. So in that session, we talked about what is entity, what is entity, what is mapping, what is configuration, what is mapping, and we discussed about what is configuration. Okay. Can anyone tell me what is entity, guys? Can anyone tell me what is entity? The Java class which is mapped with database table is called as entity class. The Java class which is mapped with DB table is called as entity. The Java class which is mapped with database table is called as entity class. Then what is mapping? The process of mapping Java class to database table. So we need to map Java class with database table using XML or
notation.
Yep. We need to map Java class with DB table using XML or annotations approach. Using XML or annotations approach. What is configuration? We'll configure database connection properties. We'll configure database connection property. Configuration represents DB connection properties. Configuration represents database connection properties. Got it? Fine. Right. So guys, as per previous classes, I hope all of you done database server setup and database client setup also. Database server setup and database client setup also. Good. Now, so here we are going to talk about data JPA, Spring Data JPA. Spring Data JPA. Spring framework provided Spring Data JPA to simplify persistence layer development. Spring provided data JPA to simplify persistence layer development. To simplify persistence layer development, you may get a doubt how persistent layer development is simplified. Already we have seen JDBC, we have seen Spring JDBC, we have seen Hibernate, we have seen Spring ORM. Now you are talking about data JPA. How persistence layer development got simplified by using data JPA. Slowly we will understand that. Data JPA provided below two interfaces. Spring Data JPA provided below two interfaces. One is CRUD repository, another one is JPA repository. One is CRUD repository, another one is JPA repository. Who provided these two interfaces? Spring Data JPA. Spring Data JPA provided below two interfaces. One is CRUD repository, second one is JPA repository. These interfaces provided predefined methods to perform code operations. The above two interfaces provided predefined methods to perform code operations. Above two interfaces provided predefined methods to perform code operations. Note, we no need to write logic to perform code operations. Spring Data JPA will take care of it. Generally, we need to write a method, and inside that method, we should write the method body to insert the record, or to retrieve the record, or to delete the record, or to update the record. But when it comes to the data JPA, We no need to write any logic here because that logic will be taken care by data JPA. So how we are going to implement that? We just need to create one interface. We just need to create one interface by using CRUD repository or by using JPA repository. By using CRUD repository or JPA repository, we just need to create an interface. If we create the interface by extending from any one of this interface, they will provide you predefined methods to perform code operation. So without writing any logic in the DAO,
Hmm?
be able to perform database operations. That is
Take
the
the
beauty
sound.
of data JPA. That is the beauty of Spring Data JPA. Now, so Spring Data JPA is provided to simplify persistence layer development. What do you mean by simplifying the persistence layer development? Reducing burden for the developer. Developer no need to write much logic to perform persistent operations with the database using Java application. Okay. How that persistence layer got simplified? That got simplified with the help of two interfaces available in the data JPA. What are those two interfaces? First one is CRUD repository, second one is JPA repository. What are these interfaces? These interfaces provide the methods to perform the code operations. We just need to call the methods. We no need to implement them. We no need to implement them. Sir, interfaces they are provided. Interface contains abstract methods. How can they execute? Implementation classes also will be created in the runtime. Okay. We just need to use those predefined methods to perform our operation. You no need to write any logic also to insert the record. You just call the predefined method. If you want to delete a record, you just call the predefined method. If you want to retrieve the record, you just call a predefined method. So you no need to write any logic to perform the persistent operations. That persistent operations will be taken care by data JPA repositories. What are the two famous data JPA repositories are available? One is CRUD repository, another one is JPA repository. What is the difference between these two? What is the difference between these two? JPA repository is having more functionalities, more features when compared with CRUD repository. JPA repository having more features when compared with CRUD repository. CRUD repository will support for only code operations. CRUD repository will support. CRUD repository will support for only code operations. Support only for code operations. Okay. JPA repository support for JPA repository supports for code operations plus pagination and sorting. Okay, pagination and sorting functionality is added advantage if you go for JPA repository. But if you go for CRUD repository, you can get only code operation methods. CRUD repository will support for only code operations. Whereas if you go for JPA repository, it supports for both code operations plus pagination and sorting. Supports for code operations plus pagination and sorting. Okay, which is recommended to use now? JPA repository is recommended to use because whatever the operations that we can do by using CRUD repository, same thing can be done by using JPA repository also, and some extra features also available. I can insert, delete, retrieve, update the records by using CRUD repository. Same thing I can do by using JPA repository. Along with that, pagination and sorting functionality is also available. Along with that, pagination and sorting functionality also available when you go for JPA repository. Guys, look at these points once. Data JPA. So you can see in the net what they're talking about. Spring Data JPA. What is this Spring Data JPA? Right, now go for official documentation of spring.io. Spring.io. Guys, could you please read this? Please read it. What is this data JPA is all about? Guys, all of you please read it. Guys, all of you able to understand what they are talking about data JPA? Spring Data JPA, part of the larger Spring Data family, makes it easy to easily implement JPA based repositories. This module deals with enhanced support for JPA based data access layers. It makes it easier to build Spring powered applications that use data access technologies. Implementing a data access layer of an application has been cumbersome for a quite while. Too much boilerplate code has to be written to execute simple queries as well as performing pagination and auditing. Okay, if you want to perform the DB operations, that means lot of boilerplate code we need to write to perform the pagination, auditing, and all the code operations. That is simplified by using this data JPA. Spring Data JPA aims to significantly improve the implementation of data access layers, nothing but persistence layers, by reducing the effort to the amount that actually needed. So if you want to perform a DB operation, you will write some piece of code. How much time that you are spending to develop that, they want to reduce that time. They want to significantly improve the implementation of data access layers. Okay. As a developer, you write your repository interfaces, including custom finder methods, and Spring will provide the implementation automatically. Generally, when you go for JDBC API, you should write the method, you should write the implementation also. But here, what they are telling, you just write your method. Implementation will be taken care by Spring automatically. That is a built-in functionality. Okay. Now, some features also available. Now we are going to create one application by using Spring Data JPA. After developing one or two applications, you will understand the clear picture about what is that data JPA. Accessing data with JPA. Accessing data with the JPA. So it's very simple that you can build one application by using data JPA to perform the operations. Got it? Now. Steps to build our first application by using data JPA. Steps to build, develop Spring Data JPA application. Develop Spring Data JPA application. Okay, now first step, create Spring Boot application. Create Spring Boot application with the below dependencies. Okay, yeah, we are going to select Spring Starter Data JPA. Spring Starter Data JPA. Okay. Second step, Oracle driver. I'm using Oracle database. So I need to use Oracle driver dependency. And I'm using Project Lombok. Project Lombok for setters and getters. I'm using Project Lombok. Okay. Before that, I will create a setup table in the database. Setup DB table. Setup table in database. Setup table in database. Create boot application with the below dependencies. Okay. Now, third step. Create entity class and map with table. Fourth step, create repository interface by extending CRUD repository. First, I will go with CRUD repository. Okay. Now, next, configure data source properties in application.properties file. Configure data source properties in application.properties file. Configure data source properties in application.properties file. Okay. Call the repository methods. Inject the repository or get repository bean in start class and test those methods. Configure data source properties in application.properties file. Run the application. Run the application and verify results. Okay. Guys, these are the steps that we need to follow to develop our first application by using data JPA. Guys, please read it. What are the steps that we need to follow to develop our first application by using data JPA? Guys, please read these steps. Guys, please read these steps that we need to follow now. Those steps we need to follow to develop our application. Guys, are you able to understand the steps that I have written here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any questions, anybody?
Not yet, sir.
First, we need to create one table in the data. Sir, ORM frameworks can create the tables also dynamically. That part we'll talk about later. Okay. First, I'm going to create the table manually in the database. set up table in database with columns, create boot application with the dependencies, starter data JPA, Oracle driver, project Lombok. Create entity class and map with the table. What is entity class, guys? What is entity class?
The class which represent a table
Yeah, the class
Table
which is
structure.
mapped with the database table is called as entity class.
entity.
Then create repository interface by extending CRUD repository. What is CRUD repository? Which is provided by data JPA to simplify persistence layer development. Okay. So what is the advantage of extending the properties from this interface? It is providing the methods to perform the code operations. You no need to write any logic. You just need to call the methods provided by this interface. Now, so once you have that repository interface, we need to call the methods to test it, right? So for that, I'm using start class only to test it. I will get the repository bin in the start class and I will test those methods. Now, in order to run that application, connection is required. So to establish the connection, we need to configure data source properties in the application properties file. Configure data source properties in application properties file. Then run the application and verify the results. Run the application and verify the results. Okay, guys, if you are clear with these steps, then we will start developing the project. Good. All of you clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm going for my database client software, which is SQL developer. Database client software, which is SQL developer. Database server is already installed. Now to connect to that server, I'm using client software, which is SQL developer, which is acting as a client for Oracle database server. Yeah, let me go to one database. I will take any table which is already existing, or I will create a new table. Hold on, guys. I'm connecting to the database. Yeah, connected. Let me check the tables. If any table is already available, I can use like customer table or some person table, something like that. Yeah, student details. Student details. Select star from student details. Select star from student DTLS. Enter. Table or view does not exist. Students details. Select star from students details. Okay. Now here we have few records. Let me truncate the table. Truncate table students underscore details. Truncate the table student details. Records are deleted. Then describe the table. We need to see the columns available in data types. Describe student details. Now, student ID, that is a primary key number type. Student age, number type. Email, varchar. Name, varchar. So total there are 4 columns available. Out of that, one is a primary key. According to this table structure, we need to develop our entity. Good. Yeah. Go to the project creation, file, new, Spring Starter project. Spring Starter project. Our application is data JPA. Our application is the data JPA application. So I am going to create Spring Boot data JPA CRUD repository application. Click on next. Now we need to select the dependencies here. So what is the first dependency I need to select? Data JPA dependency I need to select. Spring data JPA. Data JPA I am selecting. Now next one, Oracle driver I need. As I am going to communicate with the Oracle database, I need Oracle driver. For setters and getters, I need Lombok. For generating setters and getters, I need Lombok. Lombok,
Sir, for
data JPA,
MySQL,
Oracle. For MySQL, you need to select the MySQL connector. If you are using MySQL, you should select the MySQL connector. Now click on finish. Project is getting created, guys. First application that we are creating by using data JPA. So to create that, we have one starter, that is Spring Boot starter data JPA. Spring Boot starter data JPA. Yes. Now, guys, the project got created. Look at the pom.xml file. Look at the pom.xml file. So new dependency we selected for first time, that is Spring Boot starter data JPA. Okay, Oracle dependency is added. Before that, starter data JPA dependency added. Oracle dependency, Lombok dependency also added. Good, fine. Next one.
Sorry, here Spring Boot starter dependency is not available.
No problem, sir. With the data JPA, that facility will come by default.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. See here, Spring Boot starter data JPA, starter AOP, JDBC, Hikari CP, starter JDBC, all the required dependencies we got.
Okay.
Good. Now, next. Start class. There is nothing change in the start class, guys, as it is. Run method will be available. That boot application annotation also will be available. Good. Next thing, we need to create an entity class and repository interface. As we discussed in the steps, we need to create an entity class. So can you please tell me what is entity? The class which is mapped with database table is called as entity.
Entity.
So student details is the table. So I'm going to create student class as an entity class inside a separate package called entity package. I will keep this as student. Do you know how to map this is Java class with database table? First declare the variables which are required. Private, integer, student, ID. Private, string, student, name. Private, string, student, email. Private, integer, student, age. Okay. For these variables, we need setters and getters. For that, I'm writing @data Lombok. You no need to write the setters getters manually. The Lombok is going to generate the setters getters for our variables available in the class. Let us import that. Lombok dependency also we have added. Yesterday, I asked you people to go through my Lombok videos. I don't know how many of you completed that.
Completed.
Yeah.
Completed, sir.
I have completed, sir.
Good, good. Now, I'm using @data annotation, which will generate setters and getters for our properties. Right. Now, guys, tell me what is the annotation I need to use to represent this class as an entity?
Entity.
@entity. Now, how to map this class with your table?
Table.
@table. Table name.
Student underscore DTLS.
For details.
All right, very good. Now, how to represent ID is mapped with primary key column student ID
ID.
@ID. Now, column names and variable names are same or different? Different.
Different.
How to map them?
Column name.
Name equal to
Equal to
Name is equal to
student
student
underscore ID.
ID. Column name is equal to student underscore ID.
ID.
Now, next one, student name. Okay. Next, student
Student email.
email. Next,
Student
student
age.
Okay. Good. So we are mapping our variables with the database columns.
Yes.
Student underscore name,
Name.
student underscore
Email.
email,
Age.
student underscore age.
Sir, can we give it with lowercase also?
Yeah, no problem, sir. We can give it name, email, age, ID, name, email, age. Now, can I say this class is an entity now?
Yes. Sir.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Entity. Let us create one repository for this. To perform the operation, actual DB operation, we need a repository. Now, let me create one repository. New interface, student repository. I'm just creating one interface inside repository package, which is student repository. Student repository. Now, here it is going to extends the properties from what? From
Repository.
For this, we need to specify what is the entity belongs to this repository. What is the entity that is belongs to this repository? Student. Student is the entity. Now, what is the data type of the primary key?
Integer.
You can represent the global format as a serializable. Serializable represents a object. It supports for any type of data. It can be a double, it can be a float, or it can be a string, whatever the type of data that can be represented by using serializable. Now, so this is our data JPA repository. I have created one interface called student repository, which is extending from thread repository. Thread repository is a predefined interface which is taking entity type and data type of the primary key. Guys, now here to represent this as a string bean, we can write @repository annotation. Okay, @repository, but actually this is optional. It is optional because data JPA interfaces are special interfaces. Whenever the application started, these repository interfaces will be loaded by the Spring Boot. Repository interfaces will be loaded by the Spring Boot. So these are for these interfaces, repository is optional. You can ignore it, no problem. Done. We are done with persistence layer, guys. Go to application.java. Go to application.java. Here, let me do one thing. Fine, no problem. Yep. I'm going to get that repository bean.
Context.
First, I need the configurable application context. Okay. Once I have that context object, can I get the repository bean? Context dot get bean. Context dot get bean of
Student repository.
student repository dot class. Student repository dot class, which is going to give student repository, which is going to give us the student repository. Okay, what I have done in the start class now, I'm capturing run method return type, that is configurable application context. I just stored that return type of the run method into a variable configurable application context. Configurable application context. With this, I have context.getBean. I have a student repository. Student repository. Now, I want to save the record into the table. First, I need to set the data to the object. Student S is equal to new student. Student S is equal to new student. S dot set ID. S dot set ID. I'm giving it as 101. S dot set student name. S dot set student name, some value. S dot set student email. S dot set student email, some value. Right, now next one. S dot set student age. S dot set student age. Now I'm able to store the data in the entity class object to insert it. Okay, now in order to insert the record, you just need to call a method called save method. Student repository dot save of student. That's it. Actually, are we writing any logic for persistence layer, or we are just created a interface?
Just created
We
a
just
just
created it.
created the interface.
Now, if I want to do the same operation in the JDBC, what I need to do, guys?
Define the methods.
We need to write the method, we need to upload the driver, we need to open the connection, we need to execute the query, we need to close the connection. Lot of things that we need to do. But are we doing anything in the data JPA?
No.
No.
We are just creating one dummy interface by extending the properties from predefined interface. That's it. Now, execute our application. Before executing my application, let me show you the data available in the table. Let me show you the data available in the table. Now, do we have any records in the database table? Check it. Do we have any records in the database table?
No.
No, we don't have any records in the database table. Now let's run our application. Right click, run as boot application.
In application or properties file, you need to mention.
We have not defined the properties.
Right. Very good, very good, very good. We need to write the data source configuration in the application or properties file. Data source. Now, does this application knows with which database it has to connect?
No.
This application
No.
doesn't with which database it has to connect. Now we need to configure data source properties, right? Spring dot
Data.
data source dot URL. Okay. Spring
Driver
dot
class name.
data source dot
Driver class name.
driver class name. Spring dot
Data source dot.
data source dot username. Spring dot
Data source dot password.
data source dot password. URL, username, password, and driver class. Okay. Now driver class Oracle dot JDBC dot driver dot
Oracle driver.
Oracle driver. Username is IESDev. Password is also IESDev. What is the URL of the JDBC? JDBC colon Oracle colon thin colon @ localhost colon 1521 /XC.
XC.
Yeah, this is my data source properties. For MySQL, this will change. For Oracle, these are my database properties. Good. Now, let us run our application.
Yeah,
Right
in
click.
this one, no need to mention on database names, huh?
XE, that is the database name default.
Okay.
I'm running my application. Yep, application started. Yep, application got terminated. Very good. Now look at the table. Is the record inserted or not?
Yes, sir.
Inserted.
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
That record
Yes,
got
sir.
inserted.
Yes.
That record got inserted. So by using which method we are able to insert the record into the database table?
For
By
Save.
using
Save method.
method, we are able to insert the record into database table. Are you guys clear with this one?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, very good. Similarly, I want to retrieve a record from the table, guys. I want to retrieve a record from the table. Now look at this. Student repository dot find by ID.
ID. Okay.
Find by ID that I am giving as 101. Find by ID I'm giving as 101. Now I got find by ID as the optional object. I got the find by ID as the optional object. Now if find by ID dot is present, find by ID dot is present, system dot out dot println of find by ID dot get. System dot out dot println find by. What is the purpose of find by ID method? What is the purpose of find by
It
ID
will
method?
retrieve the
retrieve
retrieve the record
the
using ID.
Find by ID method is used to retrieve the data. Find by ID method is used to retrieve the data based on the primary key. Okay. That record I'm printing on the console. That record I'm printing on the console. Here I'm going to close the context. Good. Now
Sir, what is the optional, sir?
I'll
Optional.
talk about that. Option we'll talk about it. It's available in the Java. Good. Run this program. Run this program. Run this program. So are we able to retrieve the student record from the database table whose ID is 101?
Yes,
sir.
yes.
So what method I have used to retrieve the record from the table?
Find
Find
by
by
Find
ID.
by ID.
Am I writing any logic to retrieve that record, or directly I am calling a predefined method?
Directly we are calling predefined method.
Directly we are calling predefined method. Predefined method available in what? CRUD repository.
CRUD repository.
Do I have a implementation class, or we don't have a implementation class for the interface?
We
We don't have
We
implementation.
don't
class.
have it. That implementation class will be created in the runtime. That implementation class will be created in the runtime. Are you able to follow this?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That implementation class will be created in the runtime. Implementation class will be created in the runtime. Now, whenever you call context.getBean method, by passing the repository interface, it is going to create the implementation class in the runtime. It is going to create the implementation class in the runtime. Very good. Now, student object, we are trying to insert that record. We're trying to insert that record. If you want to retrieve that record, we have a method called find by ID method. Look at this code.
Sir, if the data is not available in the database, what will get?
An optional object is present will be false, then this condition will not be satisfied.
Yeah, it is actually Java 8 features. We need to look
Exactly.
at.
I will talk about the optional also, sir. First of all, I just want to tell you, when you go for data JPA, you don't need to write the logic to perform the code operations. You just need to create an interface. By extending the properties from CRUD repository, they will play the game. If you go for Hibernate, you have to write lot of code. If you go for JDBC, you have to write lot of code to perform these operations. But here, without writing any logic in the persistent layer, we are able to perform our DB operations. We are able to insert a record just by calling save method. We are able to retrieve the record by just calling find by ID method. Okay, right now. So let me give you these things here, guys. I want you people to practice this before coming to next session. So in the next session, we'll talk about internals of this application. Okay, I'm giving you this entity class just for your reference, guys. Please practice it. Right, this is my entity and this is my repository. It is just dummy. We are just creating an interface by extending the properties. That's it. Then this is my start class where I'm calling the methods to test it. Then my applicational properties file where I am configuring data source properties. If you are using Oracle, you configure Oracle properties here. I'm using Oracle, so I have configured it. If you are using MySQL, then you need to configure MySQL properties there. You need to configure MySQL properties there. Got it, guys? Anybody having any questions? Internals, still I have not explained. We'll talk about them in the tomorrow session. So today I have explained just how to develop a first application by using data JPA and how to execute it. And we tested. Are we able to insert the record into the table? Are we able to retrieve the record from the table?
Sir, what is optional?
I will explain that, sir. That is a Java 8 feature. I will explain that later.
Sir, implementation class will be provided.
Null values.
Implementation class will be provided in the runtime.
Okay, for student repository or CRUD repository?
For student repository.
Sir, good morning, sir. Sir, this
Yes.
implementation class name is anonymous, means runtime creation means anonymous.
Yep, runtime class name. If you want, you can see the class name by writing get class, right? You can get the class name.
Yeah.
Proxy class will be created in the runtime. Student repository dot get class dot get name. When I'm getting the bean, it should get the class name, right? You should get the class. So what is the name of the class? We are going to check get class dot get name. Get class dot get name. Go to the console and verify the name of the class which is used for our repository.
Sir, in EP, at the time of installation of Oracle, if you change the Oracle port number, then the DB URL will be changed or
Yes.
not?
Yes. Now, see here. Here I have I am getting the class name. What is the name of this class?
Proxy 67.
Yes, so proxy 67. So who created that proxy when the proxy got created?
By JV.
Wait.
That proxy got created. That proxy got created in the runtime. That proxy got created in the runtime.
Sir, I have.
Which is
best
That proxy got created in the runtime. Okay, right. So how the proxy is creating? What are the methods available? That we'll take later. Okay.
Sir, can you open student repository?
It is just interface.
Oh, yes. And here, I mean, you have used student, comma serializable. But in many examples, I have seen instead of serializable, they are using like integer or.
You can use it, sir. We also can use integer because what is your primary key mapped variable data type? So here it is an integer, right? You can configure the same there. But serializable is a global which will support for all types.
Okay.
Sir, it support for all types means tomorrow if I change from integer to long means I no need to change
To
here.
change here, exactly.
But sir, which one is preferable? Like we should go for serializable or we should go for?
Serializable is preferable, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
we
when
provide add column annotation for all the variables in student Java?
I have given because my variable names and column names are different. That's why I have given that.
Sir, currently Spring Data JPA is the best approach for developing, right?
Exactly. Because am I writing any logic here?
No.
Without writing single line of code, I'm able to perform the DB operations.
Sir, one of my program, so it's showing error.
Which program?
Sir, can you check? Can I share screen?
Which program you are talking about?
JDBC template.
Yeah, I will take that 1 second. Guys, before winding up, anybody having any questions in the today's session?
Yeah,
Hello,
in
sir.
student class,
What is the
entity
purpose
class
of
in the two.
serializable, sir?
I have given the class in the
Integers, sir.
notepad. I have given the class in the notepad file, guys.
So integers, sir. Instead of integer, can I use int?
You can use it,
Yes.
but not recommended to use the primitives. It is recommended to use the wrapper classes.
Okay.
hello, sir.
Sir, what is the purpose of the serializable, sir? Student comma in that interface.
I told you here you need to specify data type of the variable, which is represented as a primary key column. Instead of serializable, I can write integer also, no issue.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Sir, this interface can I implement directly in class? It's possible or not, sir?
You no need to implement it. If you implement, then what is the use of going for data JPA?
Okay.
If you implement, you should write you should override the methods and you should write the logic in that, right?
Okay.
I don't want to do that. Already we have done that logic in the Hibernate. I want to reduce that logic. That's why I'm going for data JPA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, if you
Spring
use
Data JPA, it will follow ORM framework only, sir.
Internally, it will use the Hibernate. If you see the log file, log console log, you will see internally it will use Hibernate only.
Underlying technology, Hibernate.
Yes, it is developed on top of Hibernate.
Okay.
sir, if you use Spring Data JPA, then can we completely avoid writing SQL queries?
Yes, we can avoid it.
Sir,
But sir, Spring Data JPA cannot be used for entire project, man. The main motto of the Spring Data JPA to perform operations with a single table, simple code operations. If you want to execute a complex join queries, Data JPA will not support for that. It is very difficult. Okay. Whenever you are developing a microservice, if you want to perform simple code operations, then Data JPA is recommended. For complex operations, Data JPA is not recommended.
Sir, stored
Sir,
procedures
sir,
can be called stored
Yep,
procedures
stored procedures also we can call.
from JPA. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Sir, in SQL developer.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes.
One doubt, why
Hello,
wrapper?
sir. Instead of find by ID, can we use any other property of the class like find by email or find by
Find by
display?
name.
That
Hello.
actually 1 second, sir. Good question. Whenever I am calling a method find by ID, find by ID method represents this method is used to retrieve the record based on primary key column value. Okay. If you want to retrieve the data based on non-primary key columns, there is no predefined method. We should write the custom methods. I will tell those part.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
Sir, get one method is there, no, sir. Find by one. Find by one.
Find by one, find by ID. They will use to retrieve the record based on primary key only.
Yes, sir.
If you want to retrieve the non-primary key, we should write the custom queries or custom find by methods.
Yes, sir.
Sir, in
Yep,
SQL developer, what are the things you want to do, sir? First?
Yes, sir. In the area of serializable, I'm seeing other developers implement it on the class entity, implementing serializable. I don't know if it's working the same.
We work in the same way. It's working the same way. There is no difference.
Okay.
Sir, in SQL developer, what are the things you want to do, sir, before doing connections? We want to create the database and only the table name, and it's giving Oracle connection. They're asking the username and password, sir. We want to create.
In the second video, I have given the 2 video links. In the second video, I told how to set up that. Please go through that video.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
One question, why a wrapper instead of?
Sir, why wrapper class means, suppose if I give as integer, int, if I don't set the value, default value will be inserted as 0.
Okay.
Okay.
If I use wrapper class, if I don't set the data, it will insert as a null value. Null value means empty. 0 means it will be considered as a value is inserted.
Okay, thank you.
Got it?
Sir, I have one question, sir. Yesterday you were mentioning is the configuration class. You were mentioning the DB related things, but today you are mentioning the application for dot properties. Usually we are using that application dot properties only, correct?
Yes, sir. Configuration means in the Hibernate separately we will do the configuration using XML. Spring Boot supporting for auto configuration, right? When I write the data source properties, it will load the data. It will create a connection pool. Automatic configuration is happening here. If you go for Hibernate, you need to do that manually.
Okay, sir.
Yep.
Okay, sir, can you check my screen?
Please just show once again your table, sir. Table, describe the table.
This is my table structure.
Okay.
Sir, here we are writing primary key values. We can auto increment also.
We'll do that, sir. This is first example, right?
Okay. I understand. Just asking.
Yeah, we can do that. Generators we will use.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, pinged you regarding the joining of class yesterday.
Sir, yesterday I was busy in my office meeting, sir. Today I will reply to that. Okay.
Sure.
I did not open my WhatsApp as of now. I think more than 100 messages will be there that I need to answer today.
Okay.
Yeah, I will reply that by today afternoon.
Sir, in complex program, GPA is not required.
Sorry?
In complex project,
Yes.
GPA is not required.
No, we'll go for ORM concept there. Okay.
ORM concept means Hibernate we need to go with.
Yeah. Someone is saying that he's facing a problem. Want to share the screen? Who is that?
Sir, I am.
Your name?
Vipin Soni.
Yeah, Vipin. I made you co-host, sir. Share your screen. Guys, look at this and help him to solve his problem. You can share, Vipin.
If anyone have problem, tell to post in every
Vipin, share your screen.
Yes, sir.
Sir, 2 days back I joined I registered also, but previous class videos where I get, sir?
When you have registered, did you enroll?
Yesterday.
So send me a message to my WhatsApp number, madam. In my website, you can find that. So I will reply to that today.
In WhatsApp, I pinged you yesterday multiple times.
Yeah, today I will do that reply, madam. Today I will do that.
Yesterday.
Hello, master. At the 17th line, why are you keeping that class name in the double quotes, sir?
Not class, we should use double quote.
Quotes.
Your problem is solved.
Yeah,
Compiled. It is getting compiled.
Just need to compile.
Hold on. The project is getting compiled. Wait. Yep. Now
Save not done. Save
now you
is
can run your application, sir. Run as boot application. File not found. Where you kept that file and from where you are loading. Go to your service class method. You keep that in the project. Copy that. Paste in the project folder. Right click on the project. Project name.
Read CSS.
project name.
project.
Read
Actually,
CSV to.
the
I think
prod.csv.txt, the extension
it is
also is not
csv.txt. He mentioned
txt. Yes.
No. Read CSV to database project name is there, right?
Their project name, whatever project you have created in that, you need to
Keep
paste
it there and paste.
Yeah.
and remove the txt from
Remove the
the
txt also from the product.csv. Prod.csv.txt is not a correct name.
Again, cut it.
Yes. That is extension .csv, na?
Refactor.
F2.
Refactor.
F2 you
Right
can
click.
click.
Click on the product.
On the
Leave it, man. Leave it. I am doing it.
production.csv/f2.
Vipin, leave it, sir. I am doing that. Leave it.
Refactor.
Guys, you people should be speed. This is not acceptable as experienced developers.
So told me to post in FB groups if anyone have problems. We will try to help. We also get knowledge.
Yeah, I kept that file inside the project prod.csv. Okay. Guys, whenever you are working on the project, you close the remaining projects so that Eclipse will be a little bit speed. Close unrelated projects. Why to keep them open? Close unrelated projects. Now open this project. Main Java service. Yeah. Now try to run it. Excuse me. Now run your application.
SQL query, sir. Go and check SQL query. Okay. Annotations are not
coming
mentioned, sir.
actually,
Auto
comma is required.
Dot is there.
Auto
After pname there is a dot.
After PID, pname, you given dot. It should be comma.
dot, comma.
Syntax is wrong.
Name dot
You
twice.
need to use commas.
Column name after p name.
Vipin, you are very careless, man. You are very careless. You should have minimum common sense when you are writing the code. Right? While you are writing the code, keep your mind there. Mr. Vipin, when you are writing the code, keep your brain. Don't just write it. It's a very silly mistake, man. You are going to attend the interviews with 3 years experience. You are writing very basic queries, but they are not right. It is not acceptable, sir. And you are right, you are trying to get the bean by passing the class name in the double quotes. These are very silly mistakes, not acceptable. Please take care next time. Good. Fine, guys. With this, we are stopping for today. Tomorrow, we are going to continue. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Please practice this first application before coming to tomorrow's session.